Here we go, everybody. Yet another conversation coming out of Sam Magazine's Cutters Camp this year, 2022, month of May, Timberline Lodge, Mount Hood, Oregon. So stoked to have been there. Before I dive into the introductions of the people that were with me in the booth for this conversation, I want to give some shout outs. First and foremost, wonderful time to thank the sponsor of this podcast, Prenoth, for not only supporting me and everything that I do with the Blade Dive, but for getting me up there to Cutters Camp. So massive shout out to them. Just saying, center cab, stage 5, pumped. Badass machine. Secondly, Olivia Rowan for the invitation and then the opportunity to just really take over the Blue Ox Bar and create the booth, because it's only ever existed remotely. So massive thank you to Olivia. Just as a fair warning, FYI, this conversation is all about mental health, and it is a subject matter that's not regularly talked about in the industry. You know, there's no question that I always want to be a listening ear to this conversation. So just an FYI, if it's a trigger for you, that's what this episode is all about. My guests today are Laura Rogoski and Drew Petersen. And if you do not know either of those individuals, here's a quick rundown. Laura is the creator of We'reAllFuckingMental.com. It's a resource that she's built, and there is a mental meetup online every Monday at 3 p.m. Central Time, so you're going to want to check out the website for the Zoom link there to join. Laura is also a snow industry veteran and was given a chance to be a part of the High Cascade crew back in the day by Corey McDonald, so shout out C-Mac. Drew Petersen is a pro skier, but that's not necessarily what defines him. He's created a film called Ups and Downs, which is presented by Salomon TV in association with Hestra Gloves, the Mountain Gazette, and Sweetgrass Productions that focuses on his battle with mental health. Drew is most recently interviewed with Sam Magazine covering mental health in an article titled The Breaking Point, where there are so many resources for people out there that do operate or are a part of the snow industry. So check that out. I'm going to shut up. We can dive into the episode. Here we go.
Go ahead and give it to Juice.
Already.
Okay, what is up, everybody? Back in the booth. It's kind of weird for me to say because I've only ever done this remotely. And so I'm winging it as I go, but I'm loving every minute of it. We've had some awesome moments here at Cutters Camp, and that's where I am at. I am in Mount Hood, or at Mount Hood rather, at Sam Magazine's Cutters Camp with two incredible human beings sitting right beside me, left and right. Drew Petersen, amazing individual. If you've never seen his movie, Ups and Downs, you need to check that out. We'll get into that and talk about it. Laura Rogoski, master of multiple trades within the industry, but cultivator of culture. I would go there, or maybe even further. So stoked that you've both joined me in the booth. We're at the Blue Ox Bar, Timberline Lodge. Kind of a trip to have you both right beside me talking live about all things that are mental health in the industry. Welcome.
Thank you.
Good to be sitting in an empty bar drinking hot tea.
Hot tea.
And Mountain Dew.
No, I love it. It's something that just like I said, I haven't done this before. And when Olivia Rowan hit me up and said, "Hey, let's do this. Let's do something. Let's get these folks in the booth. What do you think?" And I'm like, "Yeah, let's do it." But Drew, you just gave a pretty powerful speech, and then Laura coming in right behind you and piggybacking off a lot of what you said. But mental health is not something that we, as operators within a community, really talk about, I would say, publicly and transparently. One of the guests that I've had on the show previously, Jay Ridd, who's quoted in Sam's article that's out there that you were a part of. But Jay has always kind of influenced me with the comment of the Tough Guy show and kind of how people really struggle with asking for help. People will struggle with the thought of leaning on somebody else at all. You have an incredible story, so do you. But I'm not the expert in how we kind of shift things. And I think what both of you have been up to over the course of however many years is figuring out not necessarily what the one-size-fits-all solution to the problem is, but you've been talking about how you can help people and how they can help themselves, which is rad. So maybe Drew, let us in on a little bit of what just went down up there in that massive room with some heavy thoughts coming off of people. I teared up. That video was heavy.
Yeah, I teared up too. Yeah, that film, Ups and Downs, is a film that I created over the past year. We filmed it in winter of 2020, 2021, and released it February 1st, 2022 this year. So whenever I show that film to a live audience, I still watch it with the live audience because I find it important to be in the same headspace as them when they then go up and speak afterwards. And it still makes me tear up every time. So a little bit to rewind. My name's Drew. I'm a professional skier, and that's what most people know me for. But I certainly do a lot of things beyond that. And sometimes it feels a little weird just dubbing myself only as a professional skier because I think there's a lot more to identity than just that.
Yeah.
But it was an honor to be here and an awesome opportunity to have a conversation that, like you said, in the ski and snowboard world is not a common conversation. I often say that bringing that conversation out of the shadows and into the light requires meeting people where they are and meeting people in settings that traditionally wouldn't be a place where we'd have conversation about mental health, especially with depth. So a place like this, being at Cutter's Camp, or for me as a professional skier, what I do most of the time is make ski movies. And so I did just that. I made a ski film about everything but skiing. And that is what Ups and Downs is. I've been struggling with mental health my entire life, but over the past 5 years, that has really come to a T. And I've been on a really deep inward journey of personal healing and personal growth. And I tried to encapsulate that into a film. And for me, making that film, I wanted to create something very real, very true to myself, very true to my story. That was the goal in it. The broader goal of it was, of course, to help people, help other people. The other benefit that came with it was that it's also helped me. By having this film out there in the world and being able to talk openly about mental health, I feel like I'm able to show up as myself every single day. And that's incredibly liberating. Yeah. And I think speaks to exactly why we need to have this conversation and, why we are having this conversation, but also why we had the conversation we just had where Laura and I both spoke with the group.
Yeah. And that's why Laura's sitting to my right, because I personally, the video, I was already hooked on the video. Yeah, I cried. I definitely cried. Because I haven't experienced that, but I didn't know how to. I felt, I don't know, almost if it was sympathy or what it was. I don't know what it was, but I was just overcome with emotion during that film, and it made me look at myself a little differently at that present moment, wondering if I'm doing enough for the people around me. So yeah, it was definitely. It was intense, man. So I'm grateful that you shared that with us. And then Laura, coming in right behind Drew, hammering home really the importance of, so Drew being the professional skier, making a movie about nothing to do with professional skiing and then taking it around the world and YouTubing. Laura's done some amazing stuff as well. Being a part of the snow world, we'll call it the snow world instead of the ski and snowboard world, maybe, I don't know. Snow world, working with Snowboard Productions, but also creating a community, not just for mental health awareness, but a resource for people. Would you say it's through because I look at the stuff that you have and it's your artwork, it's your heart and soul that you put into it. It's digital. You got some zines. Fill us in. What's going on there?
So I saw a gap. I'm sure the same that you saw, and it was just like, how do we make this better? Because in the current world that we live in, you see everything on Instagram, and you see these posts. Reach out to your friends. Tell your friends you love them, but you don't ever see how do you reach out to your friends? How do you really make an intimate connection? And unfortunately, DMs and text messages aren't enough. There's a lot of research that shows that we need, as humans, we need the facial cues and we need the intonations. And I was like, so this is challenging. Like, how how do I give back to my community that I care about? And first thing was, I learned you have to take care of yourself first. So I was in an awful spot. I didn't even know I was in an awful spot because I didn't know how to check in. So it was just a really big learning experience, and I really had to hit a low before I was able to sort of build myself back up and learn real life skills, coping mechanisms, boundary settings, a lot of things with communication as well. And then with that, I wanted to share that with my peers and with my community, and I didn't know how. And I thought, like, what resources do I have? Like, what do I have in my home? I was like, all right, I have a printer, scanner, copier. I love making artwork, and I think I'm funny. So I was like, how do I put this all together? And I basically made a zine on computer paper.
Damn.
And
was this kind of like where you were too with the movie? Like, I mean, I feel like everybody's creative in different ways, but I don't know.
Yeah, maybe similar. You're like, I know how to make ski movies. So like, let's take that knowledge and that skill set that I have and apply it to a different mindset. And I was like, all right, I know how to make artwork. So I made my whole zine on paper and scanned it in.
Oh, shit.
Everyone looks at it, they're like, oh, what program do you use? I'm like, Pages. Like,
I drew it down and then I scanned it in.
Yeah, but then making that and then being like, well, how do I share this with more people? And then I was able to team up with Crush and be like, I'd love to bring this on the road because snowboard events are stressful. You're not at a normal sleep schedule. You're not sleeping at home. You feel this inherent pressure to perform, to get video clips, to get photos. And I was like, I want to help my friends. And so sort of ran with that. And then another sort of tangent on that is I'm in recovery. So I was going to AA meetings and there's just like a lot to unpack about that. But really I was like, these are almost fitting, but not quite right. Like there's one little thing missing. And I was talking to another friend who, recovering from an injury, had an opioid addiction, and she felt the same way. And we're like, how do we start like Sad Snowboarders Anonymous? Because like the framework is there, but the content that we need is slightly off. And then we were talking, we were like, well, what if we just start it with each other? What if we just meet once a week and check in and talk? And I was like, all right, let's do it. I ended up paying for a year-long Zoom account, put it on my credit card. It's like, all right, here's how we're going to do it, because we live in different states. We reached out to a couple friends and told them like, hey, we're just going to meet once a week and talk about our feelings. And from there, it sort of grew. And then as it kept growing, I was spending insane amounts of money on printing, Zoom accounts, website fees, etc. And I was like, I need to take a step back and think about longevity. Because if I pay for all of this out of my pocket, I'm going to burn myself out. Like I'm not going to have a life with this. So with there, I started actually working on my communication skills, telling my snowboard sponsors what I was doing, and they donated a ton of product for me to sell to help cover these costs. So then I had art shows, raised money, paid myself back for a lot of these costs, and then it really just started growing. Because it's not about me, it's about
I was going to say, it's not about you.
We're all mental. Yeah.
Very cool.
Had you actually established it as a nonprofit? Like, where along that journey did you actually
quite a bit
make
later.
it a 501c3?
It's still not a nonprofit because you need a board of directors for that, and I'm just one idiot trying to figure it out while snowboarding full time, while working part time in a restaurant, part time cleaning houses, selling artwork, like doing what I can. So after I had spent well over $1,000. And then started raising money, I talked to Kelsey Boyer from Save a Brain. Shout out to Kelsey. And she was like, hey, it's hard to start a nonprofit. It's just you. Don't stretch yourself too thin or you'll get burnt out. She's like, start as an LLC, go on LegalZoom, go to Chase Bank. So I went that route. So now I'm an official LLC, but that was maybe after I had been having meetings for like 3 or 4 months and spent like $1,500.
Do you have something like that going on as well, beyond anything that you mentioned upstairs?
I'm trying to figure out what my next steps are on how to have an impact, but it's similar whether it's a for-profit or nonprofit business. Like I've definitely navigated that with producing ski films and producing a ski film tour. It's a lot of tough steps to take. And I'm trying to figure out what the next level of impact is. And it might be a nonprofit, but it's awesome like hearing more and more about other nonprofits like yours. And I'm like, well, maybe I could just get involved with somebody else's. But either way, it's about figuring out what's the next step to the impact.
Yeah. Really quick, what's your Instagram handle?
Drew Peterski. No dot.
No dot?
Just Drew Peterski. Drew Petersen, spelled my way with an S-E-N, is taken by a hot sorority girl in LA. So
copy.
It's kind of a bummer.
I'm going to throw something up on Instagram really quick just so we can get some questions from some listeners potentially. But several different points got brought up during both segments that you talked, one of which I think resonated really well because it was a question from the audience, but I kind of wanted to give you the opportunity, and Laura as well, to talk about that toxic positivity component to maybe how somebody could be struggling potentially within our industry. And again, I'm not an expert. I can't speak specifically to somebody's experience, but training, coaching, and feedback within the operator world is tough to come by from a good leader. I'm sure if either of you have worked for the ski industry world that you may have experienced that along the way. So there's a bit of the tough guy show there. And one way to kind of be a little bit fake nice is to just, in my opinion, from my own experience, I guess this is the one thing where I can relate is I'm receiving feedback that I don't necessarily need. It's not productive for me. And then therefore I continue to repeat the same thing over and over again, whether it's a behavior or a skill set in the machine or a way that I'm leading a team, because I'm not getting that real honest feedback and I'm receiving just nothing but you're doing great, man. Awesome. Good vibes all the time kind of deal. So I'd really love for you to just, because that question, I can't remember the gentleman's question exactly, but it was damn good. So yeah, toxic positivity. How do you view that maybe in any way that it's affected you or how somebody could be aware of it and deal with it?
Yeah, let's hit on the toxic positivity note first and kind of identify what that is.
Perfect.
So essentially toxic positivity is what we're surrounded by in the ski and snowboard world and really in the entire like mountain community. It's the good vibes only mentality or the every day is the best day of my life kind of mentality, and how we make that a pervasive thing that extends outward into our social interactions. That sounds like a very like textbook definition of like what's honestly just a term that I've only heard a few other people use to say like it's only okay to talk about good things and it's only okay to act like you're happy and having fun all the time.
Yeah.
And essentially, that's just not how the human experience works. Like, we're all going to have negative points in our lives. We're all going to have days where we're a little down. And if we're surrounded by this good vibes only mentality, like, how are we supposed to show up as human beings on those days when we're struggling? Or, when I can't put a smile on, when I can't put a mask on. So that's really what toxic positivity is. And the reason that I spoke to it is because, in my opinion, it's one of the big issues that has led to and is a part of the mental health crisis in ski towns and in the outdoor community. And the reason that I brought it up in my speech today is because it's a component of my own life too. Especially when I was struggling and things were starting to come to a T, I would really try to put on a mask, both in person and on social media, just trying to make it seem like everything was all good and hooting and hollering and having fun. And that ran out. And, that's really what it comes down to is if we fake what our existence and fake what our experience is, then eventually you're going to have to come head to head with what's real. And if you're pretending that negative side doesn't exist, then it's going to be overwhelming when you have to face it. So I think that's why toxic positivity was an issue for me and why it's an issue for our community.
Yeah, I did not know the definition of toxic positivity. I definitely winged that one for sure. I learned something upstairs and then just right now.
I mean, like, I don't know how many people use that. Like, I've only heard a few other people use it.
Really?
I don't know. How about you, Laura?
I've heard it, but I'm a sort of like sociology nerd. So,
nerd out on us. Go on.
But I think for me, what I see it in a lot of our culture is, hey, how are you doing? I'm good. Like, that's the response. You feel like you have to say you're good, whether you are or not. And you feel like if you say you're not good, that you're less than, or that you're a burden. So you really feel like you only have one response, regardless of how your day is going. For example, the other day I was like, go get coffee. Hey, how are you? It's like, I'm mediocre at best. And the response I got was like, whoa, you're not supposed to say that. This is how it goes. I ask you how you are. You tell me you're good.
That is such a good point.
But then like also when you ask somebody how they are and they say, I'm good. And you like look them in the eye and you say, no, really, how are you? Like, I find that a lot of times you're met with like people who are like just flabbergasted that you actually want to know.
Yeah. And they're scared to share that with you because they think that if something isn't all right with them, that they're not acceptable or they're not enough. And something I've seen with toxic positivity is that the people I worry about the most, like the people I think need the most help, are the people who put on the brightest face. The people who are, yeah, everything's awesome. Like, I'm going out tonight, I'm partying, my life fucking rules. Those are the people that I think are really struggling the most because they feel that if they ever let their guard down, everything will crumble. So when I see people that are like, yeah, like, I don't know, today's kind of shitty, I'm literally not worried about those people as much as the people who are like fully engrossed in toxic positivity, because that means that they've walled themselves off so much that when they finally let it down, it's floodgates. Yeah, it's dangerous.
Here's a question: like, is it kind of like a bit of a friend or a circle audit if folks aren't being receptive to stuff like that? Because, like, for example, on the car ride down to go to Wendell's last night, boys, I'm riding down with Charles and Brandon, and they're like, "How's it going, dude?" And I was like, "Work was fucking heavy today, dude. Like, I couldn't even get my head in the zone to do majority of what I needed to do." To set this stuff up in here in the Blue Box or hang out with anybody from Prenox. Like, it was just so heavy. But they were there to receive it and then also tell me their day was shit. Or, their day wasn't shit, but they were at least there to kind of tell me, cool, dude, like, what's up? Tell me more. Like, what's going on? I don't know if that's kind of what you're talking about. Like, that's a good thing, but I guess I'm bringing up like the circle audit or the friends audit is how can you adjust what's around you, as you mentioned earlier, everything that's around you with that toxic positivity to behave in a way that's more authentic, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Yeah. I'd just say humans need connection with real depth. Yeah. Like, that is a elemental truth of the human experience. And if our social existence is only surface level, then that's not going to be healthy, especially, from a sustainability or longevity standpoint. And so I can attest to, like, when I was struggling and I would put on that happy face, like, I was also surrounded by friends who I didn't feel comfortable being honest with. And now my life is built on deep levels of connection, and I'm surrounded and connected with a lot of people who I'm honest with and who are honest with me. And, I think that speaks to being in a healthier place.
Yeah, I would say like active listening and rigorous honesty. Like, if I ask you how are you doing, like, I need to make eye contact with you and like look at your body posture, like actually read into it a little bit further. And if someone tells me that they're not doing well, just being there as someone to listen is huge. And letting them know, like, not trying to solve the problem. I think that's also something really bad with our community and society.
You mean like trying to figure out what's going on with somebody?
Not trying to fix anyone. Okay. Yeah. Like, if someone tells me they're not doing well, I don't need to tell them like, oh, you know what you should have done is got more sleep, ate a better breakfast, and wrote in a journal and read some fucking books. Yeah. Like, what that person really needs is just to know that I'm there to support them. So like, if you tell me like, yo, my day was shit, like, I had an awful night last night, be like, oh man, I feel for you. Like, is there anything I can do? And sometimes all you can do is just like listen or be that shoulder or let them know that it's okay that you're not okay. And that all goes back to toxic positivity. Like, if you give people the idea that they're less than for being not okay, we're never going to open up and we're not going to be honest. So if you tell people like, I'm here for you on your good days, I'm here for you on your bad days, I'm here for you regardless. And I'm not going to try to fix you. I'm not going to claim I can solve your problems, but I'm going to be here for you no matter what. Just that is like a breath of fresh air.
And it's not just about saying it, it's actually about showing up and being there.
Yeah.
Like, that's the biggest thing that you can do to show up. Like, people don't need, people need a friend. People don't need somebody to solve their problems. They don't need a psychiatrist and a therapist and a life coach all in that conversation. They need somebody to be with them in the space, the emotional space that they're in.
Yeah. Not really switching gears, but like jumping back into kind of it's still applicable very much. I find I'm a talker. I love to talk. I'm happy to talk to anybody. It's amazing. If I could podcast for the rest of my life, I would totally do it. Just haven't really had the opportunity to figure out how to make bukus of money out of it. Maybe it's just time. I need to invest more. I don't know. Pursuing conversations, checking in on people, doing it the right way. We talked, what was that? That would have been Sunday night? Yeah, Monday night. The panelist, the fireside chat. Yeah. Fireside chat Monday night, and then the all-women's panel, we talked a lot about, there were some commonalities of how you actually can be effective at approaching people kind of in what's currently around them. And that's something that was maybe going to be one of my questions, but during your talk, but not necessarily like wanting to fix it and come to them and be the problem solver, but actually being a part of that list as an individual you mentioned upstairs. Somebody that somebody can actually count on, that understands, but isn't necessarily trying to fix the problem for the person. How do you think snow industry people can come to one another and do it effectively? Is it the digital thing that you've created, which I think is beautiful? Is it the movie thing? But one-on-one, if we're not the creative artist and we're not the brilliant snowcat operator, or we just love what we do with the rake, or if we just love to shred and we're in it, right? How can we check in on each other and meet each other where we're at? How does that work? Like I'm probably pretty aggressive at that, where it's like, hey, how's it going? I just want to talk. Are you okay? I don't know. I love talking to people, but that may not be the right way to do that.
My thoughts on that are that Instagram has sort of fucked up all of our communication skills. Now we all have this highlight reel. People look at, I think of Skate Tits as like a brand. That's not me. Yeah. That's a highlight reel of my snowboarding. I try to be a little bit more authentic with it, but then you see all this DMs and reach out, and that's not helping. In some ways, it's actually hurting. And I think what we really need is to go back to a rotary phone system where you pick up the phone and you call someone, or you skate to your friend's house and you knock on the door and you say, hey man, what's up? And you have that face to face. And with that, with the communication skills within our industry, the best thing we can do is to dedicate time to face-to-face interactions. FaceTime is a close second. Phone calls are a third.
Yeah. Is it bad that, can we term that like analog versus digital? Like analog being the phone, the cord, you pick it up and you actually do it?
I say that all the time.
Do you really?
Like, analog over digital. Like, I fucking love my analog life.
Nice.
Think about, you can track on your phone, how long did you spend on social media? What if you spent that same amount of time journaling or meditating? How would you feel in a week? Most people spend, on average, let's lowball it, an hour a day. What if instead of during the course of a week, you spent 7 hours meditating or 7 hours journaling versus scrolling mindlessly through a feed? That is, the algorithm is designed for you to more screen time.
Yeah.
Like, it's not good for you.
It was funny. I don't even have my work email on my phone, but I still partake in social media. That's probably fucked up.
Well, I think something that's really important with the discussion of social media, and I think it's really important to have around mental health, is that social media has billions of dollars of engineering behind it to capture our attention and to leave us feeling empty and wanting more of it. That is how it works. So, like, don't beat yourself up for being addicted to scrolling Instagram, but become aware of what's actually going on. Your attention's being commodified, and you're getting these miniature hits of dopamine that don't actually make you feel good. They only make you want more and make you feel empty afterwards.
Well, so like, do you think, going back to like approaching people, kind of meeting them where they're at, I agree. The analog way versus the digital way is way more effective. Way more effective.
Slide into their DMs, get their phone number, and follow up with that.
Ooh.
I always like, if somebody's like trying to have a conversation over DM and it's a conversation I want to have, I'm like, yo, here's my phone number. Just text me, please.
Yeah, or call me. Yeah. On
this note, so last year, I had pretty much a mental breakdown at Hood during its tits. Left early. Like, didn't say bye to Crush. Just like pieced out. and deleted my social media. And I don't trust myself, so I went as far to change my recovery email and my recovery phone number to my friend Taylor Elliott's, because I was like, I don't trust myself. I'm in an awful mind space. I literally am like hurting, like nauseous, like shaky. And the last thing I need to do is pick up my phone right now. And like what I really needed was just her to sit at a park with me.
Yeah.
And not stare at my fucking phone.
Yeah. You brought up a really good point during your talk upstairs that mentioned, sometimes in life, the goal is, maybe it's not a goal. I'm paraphrasing what you said. I apologize. Sometimes life feels as though you're climbing a mountain, something along the lines of that, or that the goal is that you're climbing, or it feels like I'm climbing a mountain, but there's never really a summit. So I'm really, that resonated with me so hard. My life has gone through lots of shifts and changes over the last 2 years, but that 2-year period definitely felt like I was climbing a mountain with no summit, for sure, 100%. Working, grinding, 2 kids, wife, amazing life, and from my point of view, but just still trying to be there for my family was one of the hardest things that I've ever had to do, being the stay-at-home dad. Like, mad respect to moms out there that stay at home. Mad respect to the dads too and all the parents, but I'm just saying that was rough. So that clicked with me. Whether it was like a sense of overwhelming sense of calm or peace or whatever it was, but it just was a bit of an aha moment. And I'm sure there are so many other people out there that feel like that they are climbing a mountain in life, and they don't maybe even realize they are. You had several great points that went along with that quote, but is that something that you read in a book? Was it something that you heard, borrowed from somebody else?
No. So the line that's in the film is that climbing a mountain isn't how do I say it? The quote in the film is that climbing a mountain isn't a very good metaphor for life.
There it is.
Because there's no summit.
Ooh.
And actually, when I came to that realization, it was when I was coming up with my best man speech for my brother's wedding.
No
Because
kidding.
he and his wife got engaged on the top of Tahoma, on the top of Mount Rainier.
Yeah.
And that came to me in the shower right before the reception, and I was like, that's so true. And I'm glad that I got to share that in the film as well, and I'm glad that my brother gets a little bit of credit for it too.
Yeah, obviously in the shower.
But I think about that a lot, and I think that really goes along with the lines of like why we created the film that we created. Because if you take my story, it could have been the classic outdoor adventure film where you start with the nadir that is the protagonist. We all want to be the protagonist in our own story, of course. We all think we are. At the nadir, at the lowest point. And then the film, the story, is about climbing out of that, literally and metaphorically, in outdoor adventure film. And then here I am on the summit. Fuck yeah. I achieved my dreams. I'm all good now. And I ride off into the sunset. That would have been an amazing film. We would have fucking crushed it. We would have gotten into Banff Mountain Film Festival, whole 9 yards. But that's not real. There's no summit. And this story goes on well after that film finishes. And that's what I wanted to portray.
Wow.
I resonate with that so heavily. I was just thinking that, like, we're not in a race. We're in a marathon. Like, this, we're talking about longevity. And there isn't an end. It doesn't matter how good you get at snowboarding, how good you get at skiing. If you're the best fucking cap operator in the world, there's never a point that you get to where everything's just okay. Like, it's something you're going to constantly have to keep up with. And my big metaphor for like our mental health stuff is that if you get in an accident, you understand, all right, I might have to get surgery. I'm going to get a cast. I'm going to need to do physical therapy. Like, there's a recovery process, and it's physical. Like, you can see it. You can feel your progress. We have a really big disconnect on the mental side of things. So you think, oh, I'm really depressed. There's nothing I can do about it. There is, but you have to think about it with longevity. So it's like, what can I do? What can I incorporate into my life that I can keep doing for the rest of my life? Because there's no end. So for me, what I've been working on is meditating, journaling, falling asleep with my phone not right next to my head, but like in the other room. Like I got a digital alarm clock, like, or analog. I mean,
we are going to be like good homies. Like, you know, I hate the term life hack, but like buy an alarm clock is like the number one fucking life hack. So you don't have your phone sitting next to you when you wake up in the morning.
Oh, and get the kind that lights up the room too.
Love it.
I just got like the only option they have at Target that doesn't plug into a phone.
I like to sleep in a really dark room, so my alarm clock like gradually gets brighter and I wake up to light.
Oh.
But these things are, it's like you can't expect like you're saying, oh, I'm going to go to 6 therapy sessions and I'm going to be cured. That's not real. Like, oh yeah, we ride off into the sunset, like we climb the mountain. Our life is awesome. That's not real. Like, and you understand if you go to the gym for a week, you don't just stay strong. Like everyone gets it. Like you have to continue to go to the gym to continue to be fit.
Yeah.
For some reason we have this disconnect that, oh, mentally, like, I don't know, I'm just going to wing it and like hope for the best. Yeah. No, like fuck that. Like dedicate 5 minutes every morning to writing in a journal.
Yeah.
Like how much time do you spend on your phone a day? Download a free meditation app and try. Like you don't have to be good at it. Just literally like sit in silence for 10 minutes a day. Do that for a month and see where you're at. Like it makes a difference.
Yeah.
So many people, like if you talk to them about meditation, like one, you like come off sounding like a little like, you know, high about yourself. But I feel like a lot of people I talk about with meditation with, they're like, oh, but I'm bad at it. I tried it once. And you're like, that's literally the point, is you have to practice. That's why it's called a practice. And I just want to say again, like another reason we're going to be homies is because like screen time is a huge thing for me as well. Like in a perpetual battle to try to get it to be less and less. But I often look at it in the same way. And like, if I'm in like a fucking weird mental funk one day, I'll go look at screen time and I'm like, oh my gosh, I looked at Instagram for an hour and 15 minutes so far today. It's only 2:30 p.m. That means it would be 1:15 p.m. if I didn't do that.
Yeah, very true.
And there's so much more I could achieve with my day.
Well, this is what I love about this community too. We already have some questions from listeners, which is dope. So I'm going to throw them at you. You ready?
Oh, I'm ready.
We call them push road questions, Drew. Push road questions. Like the push road that you're in the snowcat and you're shoving snow downhill. Push road questions.
You can make it push road with a rake too.
This is true.
I've never worked park crew and never driven a snowcat, so.
Push road question of the day.
First push road question comes from Paul Costello. Do you know Paul? I don't think I know Paul. I haven't met Paul. Paul, what up?
Hey, Paul.
Thanks for contributing. And Paul's question is, he says, yo, Blade Divers, do you think that the shift work contributes to the negative effects of mental health? Shift work, swing, grave, or day. Hybrid shifts. I mean, Laura, come on, throw them at me. There's tons of...
Big time. Like your amount of sleep is heavily related to your mental health. Yeah. If you're sleeping less than 6 hours a night, like you can't expect to be sharp. And like at some point it starts to wear down on you. Also, if your shift is not in sync with the rest of society and you get off work and everyone else is just waking up for the day, yeah, you're going to have a hard time. Like, I think we work in a really challenging industry on all ends. And that's why I think a lot of the external resources that we see aren't as applicable to us. So if we can come together and talk to each other, we can sort of cut out what we were talking in the group where it's hard to find therapy. It's hard to find the right therapist. It's hard to make time, especially if you live in a little mountain town, you don't have options. Sleep deprivation is not good for your mental health. Being on like a different line than the rest of society. So like, you're going to bed when they're waking up, your grocery store isn't open, you're probably not eating right. Like all these things will affect your mental health. And I think the best thing we can do as a community moving forward is talk about it.
Yeah.
Normalize it. Be like, yeah, it's okay that you feel like shit because you just worked a graveyard.
Yeah.
And then like name your feelings. That helps. Talk about what you could do better and then support each other.
Real quick before you answer, do you know Kevin Soller?
I do.
Oh my God, that's awesome. Yeah, Kevin's an episode on the Blade Dive.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah,
Great dude.
Yeah. Anyway, sorry. So Drew, what do you think? Shift work, if you've ever worked it yourself, I'm sure you can maybe relate, but if not, like, what's your take?
I just want to like ditto everything that Laura said. Sleep deprivation obviously being the biggest component of that. But I think that another point with shift work is that it can also be very isolating. If you're working a graveyard shift and then you are supposed to sleep during the day when everybody else is awake, then you're spending most of your 24 hours alone, whether that be working in a cat or sleeping in a bed. And that's not going to be healthy. That's going to eliminate your ability to have social connections. Because if you do work graveyard shifts, like that is a reality. Yeah. So do other people. So you can build social connections in that sense, but also like try to build a healthy lifestyle around it. Make sure that you are getting enough sleep, even though it's on a different schedule. Make sure that you're eating healthy. Make sure that you're setting aside time to still commit to social connection and social interaction. You know, whether it be when you have an off day, whether it be early in the morning, you know, whenever you do overlap with what your normal social interactions would be.
Yeah, and the obsession was where my aha moment was with that, and I just was kind of speechless at the response, because the obsession with the job that's who I was. I was the graveyard guy. Like, woohoo! And that's all I want to do.
Well, and I think with that, like moving forward, one of my goals with We're All Mental is creating a community support network, so that if you're working that graveyard, you can talk with someone else working the same graveyard in another state. So you get off and you're having a fucking shit day and you're like, well, I know this dude's still up, or I know this lady's still up, and being able to share that and not feel so isolated.
Yeah. Great point. I got another question from Peyton McCormick. And Peyton's question is, I sit and stew in the seat sometimes. Any tips or tricks to move the focus?
Oh, sensory regulation right there. So if you're in a really negative feedback loop, you can't stop thinking about that thought, you know, like something you said to someone yesterday and you're like, oh my God, like how the fuck did I say that? Take a second, like stop what you're doing, take a deep breath, and like hold 2 pieces of snow and like box breaths, look it up, do that. It's just like a mental reset. And if you can't fully stop the cat with what you're doing, just like focus on your breathing, like change up what you're listening to, change your environment. I think that's huge. Something on We're All Mental that I want to do a Zoom lesson on is how to get out of that negative feedback loop, how to stop that stew, and like how to use what resources you have around you to make that change happen.
Damn.
Nailed it. I agree with all of that stuff. I think those are awesome tools. I think one of the notes on breath work and just getting focused on your breath is that science shows there's a million different modalities that you can use. You know, like you mentioned, box breathing. You can just count your breaths. If you count your breaths when you're calm and figure out how many calm breaths you take in a minute, then take that many calm breaths when you're stressed out, and you just took a whole minute for yourself. That's another tool. One tool that I picked up from the Huberman Lab podcast, if you don't listen to that, you would love it, is a double inhale. So you take a big inhale through your nose, and then when you feel like your lungs are full, take another small one through your nose to max it out. And what that does is open the alveoli deep in your lungs so that you get the oxygen into your bloodstream better than just a single inhale, and then exhale through your mouth. And a single one of those breaths is enough to calm your anxiety and essentially reset your brain to be able to focus back on the present moment.
Yeah,
and of course, with practice, it's going to work better and better.
Yeah. I got one more question. It's from Mr. Adam Mahler.
Hey, Mahler.
And Adam wants to know, what do you got for any advice to terrain park managers, director of mountain operations, any person that is responsible for leading a group of people to be more in tune with their teams and realize when somebody is actually struggling with a mental health issue, and maybe they can't approach you about it, but they have nobody else? how do you, as a manager within the snow world, mountain ops world, terrain park world, if you're leading a team or a crew, how do you approach somebody if you feel like they're giving you all the signs of some sort of struggle that they're going through? How can you help them out?
Laura, do you want to hit on this? Because you've actually worked in the industry in this sense more than I have.
This is a tough one, but it really comes down to our communication skills and then creating opportunities for open conversations that feel safe. Because I think a lot of it is that if you're looking at your manager, you might not feel safe or okay to tell them that you're not okay, going back to the toxic positivity. So you're like, fuck, like I'm scared to tell him that, you know, my boyfriend just broke up with me and I'm in a fucking awful mind spot and I'm embarrassed and I have my tail between my legs and as a manager, you're like, well, I don't know what the fuck I can do for this person. So what I think our community needs is designating an hour a week or an hour a month to a safe discussion. Like just talking to people face to face is so fucking helpful. So if you notice someone slipping and you don't know how to approach them, just being like, hey man, like, are you coming to make it a skate night? Like make it activity night that isn't focused around drinking, because that'll again, like mask a lot of these true emotions, but just like creating an optional time for people to check in so they know they have a resource that's free and that's attainable.
I think we're always looking for the perfect solution, especially when it comes to this stuff. And don't let perfect be the enemy of good.
Yeah.
Take a step forward.
Not that I was looking for the perfect solution, but that was the perfect answer. I agree wholeheartedly with everything that you just said. I feel like my biggest flaw is trying to chase something that is perfect. Like right now, the goddamn air conditioning is on. The sound would be much better, but the conversation is more valuable than the air conditioning running right now into the background. So, of course, every ounce of me wants to get up and turn it off, but we're vibing right now. So
yeah, a few more things on that note.
Yeah, go.
Is one, what I love about what you're saying, Laura, is that can also be done, you know, just in the sense of having conversations. It can be done proactively, not just reactively. That's huge. If we're waiting until someone's in a crisis or somebody's really slipping or struggling or noticeably in a bad spot, then we waited too long.
Yeah.
Like, let's talk beforehand, because once there's an open conversation, it's going to be way easier to have that conversation when you are slipping, when you are struggling, or when they are slipping or they are struggling.
Yeah.
And also, because this is coming from the perspective of like, what could a manager do? Is part of leadership is exhibiting how to communicate effectively. And part of that is vulnerability as well. So as a manager, if you're honest and real about where you're at, you're going to create a space where the employees who work on your team also feel like they're in a safe and real space where they can show up as their honest selves, even when they're slipping and when they're struggling. And if you do that, you are going to foster a culture where everybody is able to show up and be their best selves, not just their realest selves. And that's going to, you know, be beneficial in so many different ways, beyond mental health, all the way to performance in business.
Damn.
Right on that too, because you made me think of like one of my mantras I try to go with is, all I can do is my best. My best isn't the same every day, but it's always enough. And like,
see, I'm learning that lesson right there too. Like from the perspective of somebody that I can see when somebody is not there 100% and I may be there 100%. And I think that's where Adam's question is really coming from too. That was a brilliant point. The manager may feel more invested in the day and the effort and what's happening, right? It's their job. They're maybe making more money, etc. The employee that they manage may not be on the same wavelength that day, but the manager isn't focused on that individual's attitude or what's happening at the moment with how they're feeling, or maybe they are broken at the moment. I don't know. But that's where I feel like this tough guy point of view and perspective comes into play with what you just said. Like that was brilliant. Managers really, I think, can't there's a relatability piece there, but it's not as seamless as it could be. And I think the vulnerability component comes into play, but it's like, how do you do that as a...
Yeah, I mean, this note is basically what I ended my speech on. Vulnerability begets vulnerability. And that can show up as just showing up as your real, honest self, or it can be vulnerability, like sharing something hard you're going through. I don't advocate for blind vulnerability. I'm not saying you should jump straight to the level where I'm at, where you say, I have bipolar disorder and I'm thinking about killing myself.
Yeah.
Like, it took me a long time to be able to share things like that. It took a lot of steps to get to that point. But part of the reason that I made this film was so that it could be a bridge for others. So use my film as a form of vulnerability if you're not in a place where you can already take that step yourself. So go check out the film, Ups and Downs. It's 19 minutes, and it's probably going to be a deeper conversation on mental health than your employees have ever had. And put that in an email, put that in a Slack channel, group text in your morning meeting. Say, hey, check this out. Like, it really resonated with me. Like, that doesn't sound like it's very deep, but if you put that out there to somebody who's struggling and say, hey, watch this film that goes really deep into depression, suicidal ideation, this resonated with me, that person is now going to think, oh, wow, like, this person is a safe, like, manager for me to approach. And that's huge.
That is huge. What do you think, Laura?
My thoughts on Mahler's question is sort of leading into one of my goals behind creating We're All Mental is creating a network of support systems. So maybe Trollhagen once a week, once a month, uses the framework that I use for a mental meetup. Like, the idea is I don't need to be there. It's We're All Mental, right? So you take this outline, send out an email every week. All you have to do is have someone read the intro to that email. And then if you see one of your employees struggling, be like, hey, have you checked out the mental meetup? Like, it's there, just providing an opportunity and a safe place.
Yep.
And those meetups, they are whatever the people who show up that day make them.
Yep.
So they're different every time, but it's really just an opportunity to have a deeper connection. And it's an hour long, so it's not a huge commitment. You're just like, all right, I can show up for an hour.
Yeah.
And you can show up for someone else if you're having a great day. And if you need support, show up to get support. Because that's like what my whole idea is like, how the fuck do we get people to talk to each other?
Yeah.
And if people started initiating that more, like how we've been doing on the snowboard tour, if resorts started being like, all right, guys, once a month, we're going to have a fucking meetup and we're going to check in with each other. I think that would be absolutely huge and so needed, because you get a group of operators together. They have something in common. They're going to run with that. Like the all ladies mental meetup that I had at Take the Rake was wildly different than the first one that I had at Low Tide. Because you put a group of ladies together, you talk about the same topic as a group of dudes. Like, we went on different tangents. But it was just so, I think, valuable to get to share with each other, and an opportunity where we're just like, hey, we're here to listen. We're here to communicate. What's said in this room stays in this room. But like, it's creating a safe place to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
So like how you're saying, it's not blind vulnerability. It's not going up to someone and unloading emotionally on them. It's showing up for yourself, showing up for your friends, and creating a safe place and atmosphere to do that. So if you're a manager and you're like, how could I bring my team together? It's free. Like, it's literally nothing. It's just like dedicating a time, put it on your schedule as an optional thing, and see what happens.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say that I've thoroughly enjoyed this because we've rapped about some awesome stuff. I grew, I learned. I'm definitely humbled a bit as well, too, because I think it takes courage to talk about this topic. I want to know where people can find you both, locate you. I know we just talked a little bit about social media, but Zoom as a communication tool, or picking up the phone analog style, dialing those digits. Where can people find you both?
I'll start off. I have a website, or we have a website. It's we'reallfuckingmental.com. So that's www.wereallfuckingmental.com. On that website, there is a link or a box to put your email address to be included in a weekly email with a feel-good reading and journaling prompts. on that list, there's also a page of our mental community with bios. Huge shout out to everyone who's contributed. So basically, we have photos and pretty fucking vulnerable stories. So the idea is, if you're struggling, we have a list of people with their photos, their mental struggles, whether it be addiction, child abuse, trauma, injuries, their coping mechanisms, and the best way to contact them. So like, you can literally go on there, read people's stories, and it has phone numbers, email addresses, Instagram handles, and all of these people have dedicated like their vulnerability to our community. So you can go on there, read someone's story, and reach out to them, and that's what it's there for.
So
my information as well. So if you want to get a hold of me, go on the website, and you'll find I might even have my phone number on there. If not, my Instagram is sk8tits, skate tits, and then I also have an Instagram for We're All Mental specifically. That is, I think it's _we're_all_mental. But
Copy.
yeah, check it out. Get on the email list. I've heard from people that they never come to the meetings, but they read the emails, and it's one email a week that they feel better having read it than before they read it. I use memes. There's memes in every email. I think I'm hilarious.
Drew, where can people find you, man?
I also have memes. My memes are on Instagram, but we'll get to that because that's less important. My website is drew-petersen.com. My last name is spelled with an S-E-N. So if you go to drew-petersen.com/ups and downs, that's where you can find the film, but that's also where you can find a lot of mental health resources. I built out a page on there because I often felt that content talking about mental health, whether it was a story, a podcast, a film, often just like started or ended with this little like disclaimer that says, here's the suicide hotline's phone number. And that felt very diminishing. It felt like, okay, you're in this headspace. Now it's your problem.
Yeah.
And I wanted to create a place for people to go to be able to take steps forward. So that resources page has a ton of stuff in it, what to do, including if you're in crisis. The suicide hotline number is on there, and it also explains what happens when you call it, like everything about it, so that you can feel comfortable dialing that phone number. And then it goes into, how to find a provider, how to find a therapist, literally how to call a friend when you're having a hard day. I talk about the systems that I've built personally and ways that you can set yourself up for success proactively once again. So yeah, there's a bunch of resources on there, drew-petersen.com/ups and downs. And then as far as connecting with me, there's a contact page on my website. And then Instagram is the best place to find me online, which is Drew Peterski, not Drew Petersen, because of the hot sorority girl who took the handle. But
I'm going to check her out.
I think she might be on private now.
Oh man,
you've been blowing her up.
Not that I looked or anything like that. If my girlfriend listens to this, but I've got memes on Instagram, so
cool.
Go scope those.
Very cool. Well, hey, I can't thank you both enough for your time, because I know it's definitely an effort. As you can tell, we've been on this for over an hour right now, battling the air conditioner and the fridge in the background too. But that's what it's all about when we're live and trying to set up a spot like this. I value the time that I talk with everybody, and it means the world. So just know that it doesn't go unappreciated. So thank you both.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks for an awesome conversation.
No doubt. Huge thank you to Laura Rogoski and Drew Petersen for being this week's Blade Dive episode. As always, I learn something new every time, but I think the big takeaway for me was, understanding that I don't need to be the person that's trying to fix the problem or somebody else's problem, and understanding that I need to meet people where they are and just be there for them is huge. So I learned a lot during the hour that we did talk. So thank you, Laura. Thank you, Drew. Sam Magazine would like to thank Piston Bully and Timberline Lodge for bringing Drew up to Cutter's Camp to talk to the group. And again, Sam Magazine's Cutters Camp is a special event. So if you've never attended, make sure you can. And I will see you there next year, hopefully. All right, you know the deal. Don't be a dick. Fill up your machine with diesel at the end of your shift, please.